Hello, my name is Thomas Hansen and I'll be your guide today in the Spartacus release of Gaia Ajax Widgets. Here you can see some of the new cool stuff which is coming out. This example is called Ajax Window Madness and demonstrates some of the capabilities. Here you see we're changing the skin. This requires a postback, but it's the only postback. There are two new skins in Gaia for the Spartacus release. This is an in-place edit. As you can see, we left-click it and then we can edit the text. And you saw the text updating. This is being trapped on the server side, of course. Here is our autocompleter within an Ajax window. And then we're having a little bit of script backlash effect, just to show that the text has been updated. Now let's take a look at some of the code. First, you can see we're including a couple of style sheets. These are the skins for the window, more or less. Then these long lines of Ajax buttons are actually the menu on top of the page. Here is the window with the data grid in. As you can see in the CSS class, we're actually data binding towards a property in the C# code behind file, instead of hand coding it. Then you see these buttons are actually the headers of the data grid, which we click to actually sort the data grid. I didn't demonstrate that one, but it's possible to click the header of the data grid to actually sort the data grid. Then you see a Gaia placeholder, and within that there's a table. Within that there's an ASCII repeater. This makes it possible to create the actual data grid. The onItem command is the event handler, which will be raised whenever some event is raised within the data grid. As you can see, there is no JavaScript whatsoever in this code. That's a main unique selling point. Then you see the text for the date for the blog items is actually a Gaia datetime picker. And you see the text is data binded towards the data source, which is just a normal object data source in .NET. Then you see the command argument for the button, which pops up the window, which displays the description, is data binded towards the ID of the data source item. Here you see we play around with the datetime picker. It's actually possible to sort the data grid, and that field which we had the mouse over just now was actually an Ajax autocompleter, which filters the grid. And here you see we end the repeater, table and placeholder. Now let's take a look at some of the C# code. Here we just create our database of RSS feed from ajaxian.com. Then you see we actually data bind the rep RSS, which is the repeater object, which you can see here. You see the ID of the repeater is rep RSS, and we data bind that repeater. Here's the current skin property, which we data bind towards the CSS class of all of our Gaia windows and datetime pickers. This property will actually fetch the return value from this property. And then here's the swap skin click, which actually changes the skin. This is a postback, so you see there's no problem combining postbacks with Gaia Ajax callbacks. And here you see our database, which basically is just a memory-based session thing. ID, link, description, date, and title are the public properties of the RSS item class, which is the class we're data binding our data or ASP repeater against. Here you see we load our feed. Basically just create an HTTP web request which fetches the RSS from feed burner, and then we load an XML document based upon that. Then you see we do a little bit of XPath magic. We select all channel/items, and then we for each through that list. And we fetch the title, date, description, link, and then we're appending this to the list. The ID is auto-generated in the constructor for the RSS item class, and then you see we append it to the list here. Then we just sort the list by date in descending orders as the default sort. And then we stuff the list, generic list object into the application, which now becomes our database. Of course, you wouldn't use these things in a live application, you'd use a normal database. As you can see here now, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see that this code is 323 lines long. Pure C#. And the ASPX is 546 lines long, which is extremely nicely formatted. I think there's like one property per line of code. And for these lines of code and SPX, we get all the stuff you see now, plus more actually. Oops. This is the temporal data binder. This is an accordion data binder with help of an ASP repeater. Then you see the on-hover effect of the window, which we've defined in our CSS class, which makes the window non-visible when hovered over. Here's a tree view, so data binder towards our RSS feed. Now when I click here, I'm supposed to actually get an iframe with the URL of the Ajaxian blog item, but for some reason my internet connection, the connection seemed to be down or something. And here's our search window, which we can do searches within. The event handler for the retrieve event items for the autocompleter here will actually also loop through the description to check. That's why we search for Ajax, but the header didn't have Ajax, but you'll see the description did. This is our main guy, Spartacus.